Hello, I'm Anahita Harding. I am in a wheelchair and I have short dark brown hair. I am in Autograph in Shoreditch, which is in London. I'm in a room with a blue floor and white ceiling lights, and there is a road next to me. There's a window beside me as well, and there is a building and some trees out of the window. A lot of my work is centred around my body and looking at bodily difference, and there's also a lot of crossover with my activism. So I do a lot of campaigning for accessible public transport, and I do campaigning with DPAC, who are Disabled People Against Cuts. So there's an overlap with my activism and artwork. Compared to, say, 10 years ago, I probably can't do as much as I used to be able to do, so I have to factor in my practice around periods of rest. So I have a diary and I make sure I schedule times for rest and times for activities, and I have a look at my schedule, and if there are too many activities for one day, then I have to say no to others. So that can affect how I develop my ideas, because it can affect things like going on trips to museums or galleries or visiting artists to do research. But a pro that I found is that during my rest time, I often spend a lot of time watching films, and I find that I often get inspiration from films and documentaries, so it works out really well for me. When I'm painting or drawing or creating collages, rest can often occur, but it depends on the context. So if I have another person watching me, that can put pressure on me, whereas if I'm on my own, kind of in the zone, and I can put my mind at rest, and it's really helpful for me to kind of recharge and come up with new ideas. And I find that because I have insomnia, I often get a lot of ideas at night time, and that would be a time when most people rest because they're sleeping, but I often have my best ideas at maybe 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and I sometimes send emails at those times, which might worry people, but that's a way that works best for me. I would say that I don't work in a structured way, and that's just because I can't tell when I'm going to have a surge of energy and when I won't. So there'll be periods of time which could be weeks or months where I have loads of ideas and I want to get started on them, and they're usually inspired by things that have happened to me personally. So it could be things that people have said to me, or maybe an experience I've had in the street or on the bus or train, for example, and I will end up contacting lots of people and I want to get my ideas rolling, and then I'll kind of hit a point where I suddenly start feeling really tired, and it can be hard to follow through. So that's when I will ask for more support from other people, and I'll explain to them that that's how I work. It can be frustrating for other people, and I understand that if someone doesn't work in a completely structured way. But I think with disability especially, it's unpredictable, and you don't know when you're going to get really tired. So I have tried to not feel guilty about that, and to work at my own pace, but also to try and be better at explaining that to other people as well. Something I feel is really important is collaboration in my work, and a lot of the time I am performing on my own, but I will have friends who are filming or joining in as part of the process, and having them there for support makes the process so much more enjoyable and easier. And those periods before and after performing, when I might be feeling a little bit stressed or a bit tired, having that support network around really helps. For Are You Comfortable Yet? That was a performance where I was in a swimming costume with a hat and goggles on in a corner of a lift, and I didn't move for quite a long period of time, and I was in there from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. I had 2 breaks from what I remember, and I had to kind of build myself up and rehearse for months before that performance. And to someone who isn't a performance artist, that might sound really silly, but I had to practice being very still for hours at a time every day, and it was exhausting, and I had to figure out when I was going to rest, how I was going to rest, and how to not injure myself as well, because surprisingly being still in that position can cause your body to hurt after a while. And when I did the actual performance, I think there was so much adrenaline going through me that the next day I slept all day and all night. And I've never done that before, and it was a massive shock to me because I didn't expect that I would be so tired after performing. So that experience has taught me to not underestimate how much rest I will need after a performance, and how every performance is going to affect me in a different way. Then for the other work, We Interrupt, Our Disappearance, that was in 2018. That wasn't a solo performance, but it was more of an interactive installation, and I worked with Nina Thomas, who is a deaf artist, and I created a series of books. There were about 20 books, and Nina created a video, and so we had visitors coming in, and they were invited to look through the books, interact with the video, create their own collages, and think about how disabled people are often overlooked in conversations about disability. And our starting point was the book Me Before You, which was quite controversial because it was about euthanasia and assisted suicide, which is quite a hot topic for disabled people, and it often leaves out disabled people when it's being spoken about. And we didn't just speak about that, we would speak about disabled people in politics, and Nina was really interested in Martha's Vineyard in the US and the deaf community there. And for both of us, it was, I think, kind of mentally taxing, because we were speaking about issues which affected both of us. And in order for us to rest, we had to just have a laugh and speak about different things, and not speak about disability, but just, go to the pub and have some chips and just chat about, TV or, our families or different things. And I think when you're creating work that directly affects you, that can happen. It can be mentally taxing, and you need to kind of have a break and think and talk about different things as well. At the end of January, I'm going to be performing Steps, which is a performance piece at the Monument to the Great Fire of London. This is a self-funded piece, and I've been working with the staff at the Monument to the Great Fire of London on this piece, so we've been working directly together on it. I have a site visit this Friday actually with them. So with the staff there, I've been planning rehearsal times, and at different locations I'm going to be rehearsing as well, going up and down steps. Part of my practice is costumes, so I'm going to put together my costume, which is going to be climbing gear. And factoring in rest is incredibly important, so making sure I have enough rest after my performances is really important so that I don't injure myself. So the idea came from the emergency evacuation plans for wheelchair users when there are fires. So I've had times where I've been on the top floor of different buildings and the fire alarm has gone off and I've been told to wait there while everyone else has left the building, and I've been left there for 1 or 2 hours, and usually I will end up in a state of panic and I will end up crawling down the stairs because I don't want to be left in a burning building like most people don't. And it's also inspired by childhood experiences of having to crawl up and down steps to get to the flat I lived in as a child because there wasn't a lift. So it harks back to my childhood as well. So it's quite a personal piece, but it's also a humorous one as well, because I want it to be the equivalent to climbing a mountain, but instead it's going to be steps. It is such a big part of me that it's really hard to imagine what it would be like if I wasn't having to think about these things, because it's so constant that I have to think about it all the time. I think I would end up thinking about the idea of helpfulness in a different way, because in a world where I wasn't having to think about these things, sometimes I get a bit suspicious about helpfulness because I'm a bit cynical. And that idea, I think, does crop up in my work. So with Are You Comfortable Yet? That stemmed from someone asking that question, and I was thinking about me asking that back in response in a different context. So yeah, it would change my work a lot, but I don't know what it would look like.